Welcome back, and it's time for the week in review. We're doing the S&P 500 ES futures, and as always, I like to start with the high time frame TPO profile. This is the weekly chart, just to get an idea where we're at in value. This is where we closed at this week, right here. And as you can see, this is the previous week, and we essentially balanced within the range of all last week. So we just did a lot of back and forth as they're either trying to accept value or distribute. What is it going to be? Well, we don't know. So that's what it's all about, the levels. But at least we understand where we're at right now, which is dead center in essentially last week's value. As you can see, we have a double distribution here. This is essentially one point of control, which is also the previous weekly value area high, and then here is our second distribution down here, okay, at 67.70, which is going to be important. I'm going to point that out to you guys shortly. Okay, so right now, looking at this profile, as we've been balancing around, we do have a big imbalance up to 67.84. For those of you guys who follow along in the daily plans, we know that we've been talking about that since last week, and so that is an important area that we could potentially target if they can keep this sustained move higher. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the candlesticks. So here we go. We're taking a look at the weekly regular trading hours and the daily cash trading hours candles, and as well as the 23-hour, 5-day-a-week session, which is known as the electronic trading hours. I like to see the full range here as well. It kind of helps me perceive things a little bit better. So as we continue this push up, this was our big rollover gap, and we continued to push up and make new all-time highs. And eventually they pulled down. They held our weekly or our daily leg right here. As you guys know, we talked about this leg, how important it was at 66.64. They essentially held this leg as they dipped into this move here and held on to things, okay, as they pop back up. One of the interesting things here, and I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this for clarity purposes, is they initiated this daily level here at 66.60, and we played it perfect on Friday for this potential move up here that we've had. So is it going to keep going? Well, that is a great question, and so far it does look like it's possible. I do have some overhead resistance on the weekly time frame, but looking at the daily time frame, my only untested resistance is 67.46.50. Now, normally I'd be all excited about shorting something like this, but we have not lost. Okay, so they actually did lose on this particular daily time frame, but SPX did not. For those of you guys who follow along with me in the room, I was talking about how this candle area here was kind of funky because of rollover, and so we were deferring to SPX as it is the true indices. And so right now we're just going to say that they've held this and they are not losing. So one of two things can happen here, and basically with the rollover data, it makes things a little tricky. But the other end of the spectrum here is if we want to look at the ETH candles, and just a little bit more clarification, I'll show you. Here's the leg up, and let me just move this. I just thought about doing this for you guys right now. You can see here that they did not close below this leg up on the ETH. So technically speaking, it didn't lose on the ETH either, even though it lost on the cash session. But again, I think this is a lot due to the rollover effect. So with that being said, let's get into it. And we have this untested high up here. One or two things is going to happen. It's either going to give us a little reaction and a pullback, and we're going to continue to make a new all-time high, or this thing could just absolutely nail us. We don't really know, okay? So that's the whole point of the reason why we play it line to line. One thing we do know for sure is we have that massive imbalance that I was showing you on the weekly TPO, so they have every reason to try to point higher for right now to clean up that inefficient profile. So that's the way it's looking right here on the daily spectrum here, okay, guys? So I'm going to go ahead and pull over the 4-hour real quick. So here we go on the 4-hour, and what we're looking at right now is we do have some overhead resistance at 67.2675. That is our overhead resistance for the untested 4-hour. We also have a significant 4-hour at 67.1975. This is going to be a little confirmation here for above or below. So if they get above 1975, play 26.75 and end up re-losing it, this could bring us down a little bit. Back down into support when the time comes. Other than that, my biggest untesties up here are 67.4975 and 67.52. That lines up with the daily level that I have up here, you guys, as you can see, and we have a composite point of control. So this is the area that we lost at the all-time highs. I do expect to get a reaction here. However, if we play this, we could just simply pull back into this particular area and pop back up. One of the things I noticed here as well, that we have some big weekly resistance at 67.22. We've got that 4 hour at 67.26, and then the 67.19. This is going to be a big contention area. As you can see, we also had the previous weekly value area high at 67.20. This is going to be a very important pivot for us to pay attention to for being above or below. If you guys recall, we sold off pretty good from here too. So let's just keep an eye on that spot. If we move above it, then we have to target this. And we obviously look as for this area to be our pivot for above below. But we do have that bullish imbalance running up to 67.82, so that is a possibility. Now, for support on the downside, it's pretty thin, kind of. I have one 4 hour level essentially that's untested at 66.65.50. That's all I have. Now, there is a 4 hour or a 1 hour level at 66.70 as well that kind of provides that support. But what we're going to do is the same thing that we did on Friday, and it's the same thing we did on Thursday. We're going to use this ETH pivot, this ETH daily at 66.73. As you can see, it's played twice from the top down. From the bottom up. Now we're going to use this as a pivot for above or below. So on Friday we got long when we opened and price moved above it, which was awesome. Now what we're going to do is if price pulls back and plays our 4 hour and essentially holds our 66.60 daily and ultimately the 66.51 4 hour, as long as it holds this and gets back above the 73, this is going to be a long and we could potentially go higher. How high we don't really know. Obviously we're deferring the trend, and so that's how that works. Okay, so looking below us right now, there is weakness with a 4 hour close underneath 66.51. But we do have a untested 1 hour. I'll just bring it up for you so you can see the last line of support in this segment right here is this 1 hour at 66.36.50. So if we move underneath 66.51, we very well could move into 36.50, but you got to be careful down there, and because that actually could hold. But again, if that plays, you're going to want to get above 51, and then ultimately 73. Okay, so another thing to kind of keep an eye on right here, just to show you guys. If you recall, I talked about that previous double distribution, and that actually is located directly right here at the 66.68. It is that previous week's profile or POC, and so that lines up really nice with our 66.70 and 66.65 supports. So we just got to look for it to get back above that 73, and we could get some continuation higher. So again, we're in trouble if we go below. Let me go ahead and get rid of these lines just so you can see what's up. And then as we move below, our next area of support is going to be 65.94 to 65.88. They want to hold this above 65.83. If not, we continue to move even lower into 65.07 and 64.83 on the 4 hour. So that kind of gives you guys a little synopsis of what to look for in this coming week. Right now the VIX is extremely low, and we'll go ahead and just talk about that real fast. The VIX is extremely low. This thing is, this was our ultimate pivot right here, as we talked about in the daily plans. Above 1735 would have pushed the indices down. Below that, gave it a little relief, but ultimately the big kicker was getting below the 1636 daily. They broke this on Friday, and they basically pushed up all afternoon. Now, the big area that we have to watch for, we have an untested daily at 1493 and a big weekly at 1485. This is going to be a contention area. I do think it is possible to get a pop from here, and if it does, it'll push the indices down, but we really just want to stay underneath the 1663 to keep the tailwind in our favor. However, a push below 1485 would give the indices a huge tailwind, and so above, and that's just something you need to keep monitoring of, because we're coming down there right now. But again, above 1636 and ultimately 1735, this thing's got some issues, but again, below the 1485, we're going to keep pushing hard. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope that helps. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday and the plan on Tuesday. Cheers. Have a good one.